This is a VR to a topic making the rounds in tarot YouTube circuits, community, cliques, and friendships. I guess let's start with the question, is there a tarot community? Since I heard that inquiry get tossed around, see, this is a peculiar question to me because how can you possibly answer no? Well, I think there's this sentiment simmering around that the tarot community can be dogmatic or cliquish, and if you don't step in line, then you can get cast out. Another argument or perspective is that there are so many different thoughts and approaches to the tarot that there is no community among the tarot readers because each and every one of us are so different that there's no ideological solidarity. Community doesn't mean hive mind, where everyone thinks exactly the same way, believes the same ideologies, hold the same attitudes and opinions. That's not a community. That's not the definition of one. A community can still absolutely be formed from a group of people with a diversity of ideologies. So I speak as someone who has had very positive experiences with the tarot community and have enjoyed many privileges as a member of that community. And I think it's worth acknowledging that because it's a predisposed bias. The tarot people I'm closest to, each of them and I have really, really different approaches to the tarot, come at it from different angles and really different ideologies, different purposes, different motivations in mind. So on the surface of things, you might even wonder how we're all friends, because under different circumstances, we probably or should, in theory, hate each other because of how fundamentally different some of our ideologies and approaches and philosophies and outlooks on the tarot are. But that's not the case. And not only are we friends, but we're really, really close, like ride or die friends. It has moved beyond the tarot. A lot of these people know my personal life. I know about theirs, and we talk about things that have nothing to do with the tarot. When we have family issues or personal troubles or anything that makes us really, really vulnerable, we talk to each other and we seek out support, genuine strength and support from one another, despite these fundamental ideological differences in our approaches and perspectives on the tarot. And we're a tarot community. So to say you have to drink the same Kool-Aid in order to be accepted into the tarot community is just patently false. I actually find that level of dogma to be the minority, not the majority by any measure. Does it exist? Does dogma in the tarot community, does dogma in the tarot community exist? Obviously, of course it does. But I really think that it's in the minority and not the majority. And in fact, dogma is usually attributed to the shitstorm stirrers who end up getting cast out of the tarot community, if you know what I'm saying. Very, very few of the tarot readers in my tarot clique agree with me on my spiritual path, religious beliefs, how we approach witchcraft or occultism, how we approach the tarot or read the tarot, our level of woo-woo-ness, even how we frame tarot. We disagree fundamentally in terms of our opinions on tarot and fortune telling, tarot, and psychology, just a really wide variety of belief systems within the subject matter of tarot. For those of you watching this who do know who some of my really close ride or die tarot friends are, just look at how we approach the tarot, talk about the tarot, write about the tarot, our pedagogical approach to teaching or learning tarot, approach tarot business, our modes of witchcraft, our religious beliefs. You'd be otherwise shocked, like I said, that we even get along, let alone be ride or die friends. So there really isn't this like requirement to all drink the same Kool-Aid, like not at all. From my vantage point, I've never seen the hive mind. I really haven't. And we're yet still one united clique. How? I think it's because there's mutual respect. And that's really the key here. When we disagree within any community or enclave within the group, when there's disagreement, it's done in a way that's very respectful and not fake respect. It's real respect, no passive aggressive underhanded compliments. It's real deal respect. When there is disagreement, I've never seen it when it's done harmoniously and everyone still loves each other. I've never seen disagreement come from a place of, I think I'm better than you, or you're totally wrong. It comes from a place of, You know what? I really have a different take on that. So I know I'm like really belaboring this point, but to say you have to act brainwashed and conform and agree with some majority view in the tarot community to be accepted into a clique is just wrong. It's wrong. I've never seen that happen except for when the dissenter is coming into the discussion really dogmatically and with a superiority complex. And usually those are the ones who get kicked out of the group. Like, if you walk into a room and start pointing fingers at everyone, accusing them of doing tarot wrong, of not being spiritual enough, and to position yourself as morally superior, you are going to get kicked out of that room really fast. And I don't know how you can then whine and cry and play victim about it. So you're probably part of many different communities all at the same time, right? A lot of us are. That's my experience too. I'm part of the Asian American community. I'm part of the Mahayana Buddhist community. I'm part of a community of esoteric Taoist or occult practitioners. As much as we can be a community. I used to be a fashion designer, an independent fashion designer, and so I'm still connected to people in that community as well. We're also a part of a community formed by our occupation. So for me, I'm part of a community or professional network of lawyers. Then even within that, a network of women lawyers, a network of Asian American lawyers, a network of just in-house corporate legal counsel, a network of those who work primarily in venture capital and with angel investors. And of all the communities that I belong to because of my identity markers, I'm most bonded to the tarot community, or more precisely, the specific tarot cliques, but we'll get to that. The reason I'm so bonded to the tarot community or specific tarot cliques is because as different as all of us are on the outside in spiritual practices, even religious beliefs, ideologies, even how we tarot, as different as we are on the surface, there's something fundamental to our natures that's exactly the same. If you've ever tried out any other community like pagans or even Buddhists and Taoists, astrologers, like literally any other community, in my opinion, the tarot community has always been the most welcoming, in my opinion. All of us are scrappy outsiders who are introverted and have never fit in anywhere else and who are hypersensitive and neurodivergent in one way or another. So we're not about to hate on someone else for being programmed that way. And so when people are making the argument that they're a little bit too sensitive or too neurodivergent or too different, and that's why they're cast out of the tarot community because they don't conform to some attitude, I call bullshit. But I don't think I'm here to evangelize on behalf of some semblance of a tarot community or try to defend them, and I'm about to share why. See, some members of that tarot community already know this because we're that tight. I've been thinking of taking a long leave of absence from this tarot community because not all of my experiences with the monolith that is the tarot community has been positive. The generalized majority direction that the tarot community is being pushed toward right now isn't one I love, isn't one I think resonates with me, and having a public platform has had its consequences. I think when you have a public platform, whether or not you achieve it intentionally because you wanted it or unintentionally, you kind of just got there and was like, oh shit, what just happened? You're asking to be a target for hate. People who want to see you fall flat on your face, who make sure to be in your orbit, not because they care about you or even what you're doing. They're not interested genuinely in anything you have to say or do, but they're in your orbit just because they want to have a front row seat when you fail, or they see you as competition for whatever the hell reason and feel they need to keep an eye out on you. Okay, I'll leave that part, what I've said so far, in the video, but I'm going to cut out all the other stuff I said. So that's why there's a little bit of a disconnect here, because I cut out a lot of the stuff that I was, spilling my guts on. So, some of these videos that have been coming out about community cliques and friendships, spilling the tea on the tarot community, made accusations that certain tarot cliques were acting more like cults, and certain members of the tarot community were acting like cult leaders. I get accused of heading a cult, of abusing my power, of having too much power, of not being spiritual enough, of being holier than thou with my spirituality, of being a fucking hypocrite, with being dogmatic about the way I tarot or the way I espouse the tarot. And I've really struggled with that because I can't absolve myself of blame. When things like that happen, or when people observe that, it's coming from something real. It's coming from something I must have contributed to. And it's because a lot of the times I forget that there are responsibilities. I just forget about, I kind of just shoot my mouth the way you shoot your mouth. You know what I mean? And you give your opinions. And sometimes when you're not thinking about like all of the nuances and responsibility, like when you're not thinking about the far-reaching consequences of your words, you can express your own opinion in ways that sound like dogma. But if we sat down with you, I don't believe you genuinely think everyone needs to think or act the same way you do. I think in the moment you just say dumb shit. And so one of the reasons I have been really wanting to take a long leave of absence from this so-called tarot community is because I don't want to have to think twice about everything that comes bumbling out of my mouth. I don't think I've propped myself up as some really spiritual person. And if I have, I'm very, very, very sorry. That's never been my intention to be someone who talks about spirituality in a way that's definitive or instructive. I've always just wanted to share where I am at in terms of my very, very personal spiritual development and path. And sometimes it's on the right path, sometimes it's not. But I just feel like everything I do or say gets picked apart by the tarot community, taken way out of context, and sometimes I feel like people are just beaming with pride and giddy when they can expose me for doing something wrong or being a hypocrite or acting in ways that's wrong to them, not spiritual enough, not smart enough, not whatever enough, just not enough. And I've really struggled with that from the tarot community. And I think that's where a lot of the people who are expressing themselves right now feeling this sense of angst and maybe even bitterness about the community. I think they share in that struggle where fundamentally on some level, secretly or not so secretly now, they don't feel enough. They feel not enough. They feel like members of the community have made them feel not enough. And that's why they're lashing out at the community. And it's why I do too, and why I've been thinking about taking that leave of absence. Anyway, I did want to address one thing. I take issue with some folks, those who have been feeling marginalized and are bitter toward the tarot community or toward certain members of the community, like me, like for some reason you just have it out for me and use fighting words, words that you know are going to be inciting, like cult leader, worship, brainless acolyte, mindless follower, using these words to describe like me or the clique that I'm part of. That's what I want to address. First, I have seen a lot, yeah, in terms of cliques in the tarot community, but I've never seen a single goddamn incident of an actual cult or cult leader. These are really inciting words, and they're used intentionally to denigrate, dismiss, and make the speaker of those words feel morally superior and better about themselves because secretly within the tarot community, they have been made to feel not enough. Someone who wants to be part of a collective so that they can have ideological, substantive discussions about a topic they're passionate about, the tarot, where that collective, whether it's a live chat or a Facebook group that happens to be facilitated or moderated by a single person or a group of people, if that's the scenario, suddenly that person who wants to be a part of that particular collective to foster idea exchange, somehow they are a mindless follower, an acolyte, worships the cult leader, and that cult leader is the person who's moderating the group. Come on, guys. Every community has its pillars, sure, and I just don't understand why we would call some of the pillars in that tarot community cult leaders or high priest or high priestess, and use these words in a very derogatory way. Sorry, it's really early in the morning. I've been accused of abusing my alleged power, which really there's so much to unpack there, but let's try to take it one step at a time. People have called my friends or those who are supportive of my work as mindless acolytes, which is really, really offensive. Look, just because you don't agree with their point of view or my point of view doesn't mean you're more free thinking or more intellectual than we are. It just means there's a diversity of perspectives and opinions. We agree more with each other and you really, really disagree with us. That's it. To suddenly go ad hominem and attack people for being mindless acolytes when you disagree with some semblance of a majority view is, that's you showing your insecurities. I will be honest with you in terms of what I think, and if you hate me, you probably disagree with this. I genuinely believe in any of these community settings or group settings, even when you disagree with the majority, when you disagree in a way that honors how other people feel, doesn't try to position yourself as morally superior, you don't virtue signal, and you don't denigrate people for happening to hold the majority view. Just because they're part of the majority doesn't mean they're mindless. And so when you make that accusation and you, again, like I said, position yourself as superior or more spiritual, you're going to get kicked out of the group. You're not getting kicked out of the group because you disagree. You're getting kicked out of the group because you're denigrating others in your process of disagreeing. Accusing cliques within the tarot community as cults is condescending, and you know it is. When people use words like cult, cult leader, worship, vendor, they know what they're doing. They're not stupid. You use those words, those inciting words, cult, acolyte, worshiper, this person worships that person. You know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to establish yourself as somehow morally and intellectually superior, and then when you get called out on that, you're the one who's the victim. I'm about to get real nasty and throw some shade here. Playing the victim. There have been people who have come for my head, and so people who genuinely care about me, like friends, not acolytes, not whatever the hell you want to denigrate my friends as, people who in their own independent, free-thinking mind form the conclusion that you are being inappropriate, go after you for coming for my head, and then you play victim. You have the audacity to play victim and say a cult ganged up on you. What crack pipe happens? Okay. How the hell do people go out looking to pick a fight, get the fight they were looking for, and then go running off crying about how they've been bullied? And the specific case examples of people who say they've been ostracized by the tarot community just because they didn't agree with the majority and therefore are cast out for not being a mindless follower. I don't know every single case that's out there, obviously, but the specific examples I've seen, can I just tell it to you from my vantage point? Like I just said, some of these people enter just itching for a fight. Everything about their vibes lets everyone present know they want to argue and they want to stir up controversy. And then, lo and behold, they succeed at stirring up controversy. They stir up whole shitstorm of drama, and a handful of people try to put that shitstorm back in his or her place, and that person goes running away, tail between his or her legs, and says, "Oh my God, I'm a victim. I've been ostracized by the community." I don't understand. You use fighting words. You were obviously looking for a fight. You got one, and now you're crying about the milk you spilled. I just don't understand. If I'm going to make this about me, because why not? When someone comes for me or says something that offends me and I stand my ground, why is that an abuse of power? So now I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? If a total stranger treats me like shit, says shitty things to me, about me, says shitty things about me publicly, tries to slander my name, makes ad hominem attacks, I'm supposed to just take it? Why? Why am I supposed to just take it? Why is it presumed I don't have feelings? Why is it presumed I'm not hurt? I'm not like wounded and feeling upset? Like, I don't understand why I'm supposed to just take it or be silent or be the bigger person. What the fuck? I don't understand. If you come into my space and you hurt me and you're looking to pick a fight, and then I stand up for myself or I defend myself, I'm the one abusing my power. Also, my friends, my clique, as it were, these people are not allowed to stand up for me, because if they do, they're acolytes or they worship me or whatever the fuck. When my friends, my ride or die friends, see some asshole coming for my head, they're not allowed to stand up for me. They're not allowed to chime in and say, "Look, you better back down, or we'll bring the fight to you." Like, I mean, the paradox, or is it irony? I don't know. I always get the two concepts mixed up, is that some of the outliers denouncing the tarot community as being shitty and too cliquey are often exactly the type of personalities that make the tarot community someplace so toxic that now I want out. They're the ones making the community toxic and forcing me to say, "You know what? I want to retreat back to my clique where everyone is non-judgmental, supportive, and build me up rather than constantly trying to tear me down." The word clique has a negative connotation because they're usually associated with being exclusionary. They don't readily allow new people in. Why it happens, though, isn't coming from a place of malice or discrimination. I think a lot of us who are members of the tarot community have trust issues. Within the clique, a lot of really confidential information get passed around. We talk openly and freely. It's a place of non-judgment, and since it's safe space, we really let it all hang out. It can get pretty ugly. Would you get ugly with just anyone, or do you want to ensure that it's a safe, non-judgmental space before you let it all hang out? So funny enough, like literally just last night, is kind of synchronistic timing. I had two tarot friends over at my house for dinner. Both are really long-standing fixtures in the tarot community, especially the online tarot community. One is a traditionally published Llewellyn author, and the other pretty much runs or has run all of the major tarot conferences around the country. She used to work in the tarot book and deck publishing industry herself, and she knows everybody who's anybody in tarot. So here we are, these three tarot peeps sitting around my kitchen table, nursing chai iced tea that I brewed from Sarah Berry's Queen of Cups chai. Some of you may know her, well-known tarot reader and tarot teacher from Australia. So while drinking tea, we were spilling tea and just talking about the tarot community, just chatting about some of the crazy drama that's been going on. Who hates who has been sleeping with who. Oh, sorry, you thought that we tarot people, when we got together, we all meditated. Oh no, darling, we're real catty. But we also talked about kind of the status of the tarot community and how there have been so many conversations as of late, both online and offline, about how cliquish the tarot community is. Both of them are a little bit older than me, and I really appreciated their perspective of what the tarot community is, especially since both of them have been an active part of the tarot community for decades. I mean, decades. So the tarot community is a bit fractured, not in any bad way, but just meaning that there are very distinct enclaves within the tarot community. The three of us were talking about how you have the old guard, who are Luddites, in a manner of speaking, said with love, lots of love, and not even on the internet, but are just very much still a part of the tarot deck or book publishing world, contributing in non-public ways to tarot scholarship, or have brick and mortar tarot reading shops, that kind of thing. But these Luddites, said with love, all get together with the rest of us at tarot conferences and on occasion pop in and out of tarot Facebook groups and other online forums. So they do still sort of have an online presence. They're part of this tarot community. Then there's what they saw as the new up-and-coming rising TarotTube, the tarot readers on YouTube, but also the tarot readers with 100,000 followings on Instagram. They were talking about how, funny enough, very rare few, if any, of these members of the tarot community or this enclave ever attend the tarot conferences. So it's kind of like, so to them, that's a totally foreign enclave within the tarot community that they know nothing of. This tarot world that's entirely on YouTube, live chats, closed Facebook groups that they don't even know exist, and Instagram is, while still a part of the same tarot community that they're a part of, is totally foreign to them. Finally, there's where these two of my tarot friends felt like they fell into, and me a little bit in their group, but probably also with me, I have one toe in TarotTube or Tarot YouTube and Instagram. You know what I mean. And that third generalized enclave are those who kind of don't fall neatly into any of the two polar extreme categories. They know their way around tarot social media a little bit, enough, but not really. They tend to be involved in some way or another in the tarot publishing world, meaning decks and books, and are connected to each other by the tarot conferences. And that's sort of a tour or overview of the tarot community landscape, according to them. But I co-sign off on that. I think that's a really good overview of the tarot community. Now, within those three major enclaves of the community, yeah, for sure, there are cliques. I mean, yeah, but do you want to use the word clique, or do you want to use the word really close group of friends who have been through thick and thin together over the years? See, among the more public tarot readers, business ideas and business models do get copied and ripped off in the tarot world. Yeah, people do fuck each other over, for sure. Also, most professional tarot readers are sole proprietors and spend a lot of time alone. And, tarot authors and tarot deck creators spend a lot of time by themselves without any real support group, no one to really turn to when shit goes down. Tarot cliques are what give these tarot professionals a support group who can share insights, tips, and tricks, give advice, or just be there to lend an ear and offer consolation when things get really, really bad. Why is the existence of such a tarot clique a bad thing? And I guess I still don't really understand what exactly is the difference between a clique and a group of friends. What you call a clique, maybe I call friendship. What you call friendship, maybe I call clique. What did really touch me and made me take pause, though, was Good Wife's VR. I linked it, so check out her video. She's kind of amazing. If you watch some of the other videos on her channel, you're like, oh, she really is cool. So she participated in the hashtag 31 Days of Tarot challenge and really went out of her way to be encouraging, supportive, and responsive to all the other participants of that vlog challenge, but found that no one really reciprocated. She felt like she worked really hard on her daily videos, but didn't really get any good returns on that hard work. Oh man, I feel for her, like on some soul level. That's when cliques, even my own, get so self-absorbed in navel-gazing and just protecting ourselves that we don't exercise enough compassion to see what other things are going on in the wider community. So I think, I have a lot to work on myself, and Good Wife made me realize that. I do need to be more conscientious of whether or not I'm being inclusive, whether those around me are feeling like they have a mutual, interactive, equal relationship and standing and sense of exchange, and things aren't getting weird or culty, and we do need to keep an eye out along the hedges, right? And make sure those who are new, who are just arriving, are going to feel welcomed and invited to cross the hedge and come in. Good Wife's video raises some much bigger questions too. The tarot community is huge and wide and vast and diverse. Which voices rise to prominence and get heard, get praised, and which voices get ignored? On one level, I actually don't see it as being all that different from the issues that come up in other niche communities on YouTube, right? Like the makeup and beauty community, or the ever affectionately labeled BookTube or AuthorTube. Some channels get a ton more attention, and others, no matter how high quality the content, just don't get the love. I think what you make videos about is a factor. The length of those videos is another. Your charisma, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, but people care a lot about beauty, aesthetics, and production value of the videos. So these are factors too, as much as it pains us to admit that they're actual factors. I also really loved Shamanic Arawak Priestess's video, and she raised a really good point. People of color can often feel excluded from the tarot community. So I've personally, and I can only speak for my very personalized individual experience, but I've really lucked out in terms of gaining social acceptance within the tarot community. But she was talking about how white clients who, once seeing what she looks like, would look for any excuse to take their exit and find a white tarot reader because they felt like they could connect better to a white tarot reader. She talked about how people of color who mentioned that they'd sure like to see a little more diversity in modern tarot decks will get ignored, or worse yet, construed as being whiny. But then, who are the leaders and best-selling faces and names when it comes to published books, online courses, and just everything that relates to the esoteric and magical traditions of traditions historically linked to people of color? Yeah, white people. Who are the ones actually making the most money and profit from commercializing the magical traditions historically linked to people of color? So please, we should celebrate diversity of skin color when we're looking at those who are practicing, teaching, and commercializing off of magical traditions historically linked to people of color. But when it comes to the tarot, because tarot is historically white, we don't really need to have conversations about diversity. She talks about this issue so much more eloquently than I do, so you really need to go watch her video. I don't want to put words in her mouth. I'd rather you hear it direct from her, so go watch that video. I linked it. So, is the tarot community cliquish? Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think in large part it's because individual tarot readers are just trying to protect themselves, and they'd rather run with a small circle of really trustworthy friends who aren't going to stir up shitstorms within their inner circle, which is what I was getting at earlier. In every instance I've ever drawn up firm boundaries and acted cliquish, that person had a well-documented history of stirring up shit, being self-absorbed, being inconsiderate, hurting people, and then not being apologetic when they hurt people. Have I drawn a boundary or cut cords against someone in the tarot community? Yes. I think when you slander people intentionally or unintentionally, try to ruin them, spread rumors and lies, or act in ways that disrupt the harmony of a group, why is it so onerous of the group to say, you know what, you gotta go. You gotta leave. You can't stay here. Does that make us a brainless hive mind who is promoting conformity? I just don't see it as conformity because I don't see uniformity among those in the group. Those in the group are so different in every possible way, even in the ways we fundamentally think about or approach the tarot to the point of ideological disagreement. But we always disagree cordially and with the utmost sense of respect for our tarot peers. There's no conformity. The issue is harmony. When you disagree from a place of genuine respect for the other person. Don't start virtue signaling, spinning the narrative to make yourself sound like a victim or morally superior. And don't denigrate, like, don't put down other people as stupid or unspiritual just because you disagree with them or they disagree with you. Anyway, I have rambled nonsensically without a point for long enough. The videos I've linked in the video description box are powerful, really made me take pause and think critically and self-reflect. So I think they're all worthy, very worthy of your time. So please go give those channels a watch. You can also type into the search bar on YouTube, Community, Cliques, and Friendship to pull up a ton of amazing VRs on this topic. I personally plan on watching them one by one at some point, after the chaos of my tarot deck thing calms down. But if you can, I hope you'll chime in. I would love to hear the voices of this community.